As we come together this morning via Zoom, let us be thankful that we are able to see each other and also meet Toastmasters from other areas of the United States and the world. And may we help support each other through this pandemic so that we can all keep the faith. Mr. President.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much, Carol Ann. And now we'll do the pledge.
I pledge allegiance
to the
to the
flag
flag
of
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with liberty
liberty
and
and
justice.
justice for all.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. Great to be back with you full time. I'm back on night shift. Woohoo! I would like to welcome our guests this morning, and I'll start by saying good morning to David. David, welcome to our club, and where are you from?
Well, I'm originally from Long Island, New York. The military took me around the world. Currently, I live outside of Atlanta in Alpharetta, Georgia.
And we welcome you to our club this morning. Thank you so much for joining. And our returning guest is Carlos. How you doing?
Hello, everyone. Yes, I am very glad to be here again with you. I am Carlos Herrerias. I am from Mexico City, and I'm looking forward to this exciting meeting.
We appreciate you joining us again and hope you enjoyed the meeting. Are there any announcements before I turn things over to Dave? All right, well, without any further news, we'll turn things over to our Toastmaster, the lovable Dave Licata, who's holding up the Sunday comics. Dave, you're on.
Good morning. I was engrossed in the Sunday comics, which is our theme today. And this is important. The Sunday comics are important because it's, for me, until I became a Bills fan, this was the biggest treat on a Sunday. And it kind of tied my Sunday all together. But more importantly, the Sunday Funnies are an incredible example of mixed media. Many of what we watch on television, many things that we pack up and go to the multiplex to watch, all started in the Sunday Funnies indeed. So that's why I chose it. Plus, I'm very much at home with these people. I'm going to be 72 in November, so that means I've been reading the Sunday Funnies a long time. When I worked at Licata Cigar Store and when I worked at Jiffy Mart, it was my job to put that Sunday paper together and make sure, and not like today, folks, not like today, I would make sure that those Sunday Funnies were on top of the newspaper. So when you walked in the store, you were greeted by this wonderful panoply of color as you came in the store. Now I have to ask, because I'm doing this on my cell phone and I can't see everybody, is my dear sweet boss there, Margot?
Good morning, Dave. How are you today?
Oh,
I'm here.
Margot, if I
I'm
was
here.
any better, be twins.
I know. I had a little internet trouble, so I signed on late this morning. So for the comics are something that amuse us by imitating life for the purpose of ridicule, satire, amusement. So the word of the day is going to be parody. P-A-R-O-D-Y. Because the comics make us laugh by parodying life. So the word of the day is parody, and make sure Table Topics contestants, you use it in order to qualify. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Margot. And there is no better parody of life, and it is the #1 comic of all time and still is Blondie. Blondie started out in the 30s, and it was more of a soap opera. poor Dagwood was poor and Blondie was very, very rich. So they had to overcome that gap in their backgrounds before they were blissfully wed. Our grammarian and Katie Banks.
Thank you, David. Good morning, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guests, Carlos and David. My favorite comic strip was Calvin and Hobbes, and it's fantastic. And then as a history teacher, of course, I learned years later how it was named after John Calvin and Thomas Hobbes. And it goes and goes and goes so deep as those philosophers did. In any case, I can't wait to hear your meeting, and I will be listening for our strong grammar, folks, strong grammar. I don't want to listen for poor grammar, so let's focus on our strong vocabulary and grammar today. Thank you.
And now playing Kathy Lee to Katie's Oda is her mom. And the exciting thing is I'm going to make references to long forgotten comics. And with Beth, I've got a chance that she might share this background with me. Our master, Beth Banks.
Good morning, Master Toastmaster and fellow Toastmasters. I will be the master this morning. I will be listening for those little pauses that aren't supposed to be there and different words that I obviously use quite a bit. So I will look for those in others. And there are, I'm sure, comic strips that I remember that you also love, Dave. I totally understand that. We'll be looking for parodies at different times this morning.
Thank you very much, Beth. And just by the luck of the draw, by the sheerest coincidence, we have another member this morning with a job, and he will remember the funnies that I will as well. And that's our gesture master, Charlie Deacon. Charlie.
Thank you there. My job is to watch what happens as people speak, and I'll report back later on. And by the way, when I was very young, my grandmother Saturdays spent with my grandmother, and she saved the Sunday papers so that she could read me the comics. Thank you.
A lot of memories there, folks. Later on in the meeting, we're going to play It's Fun to Learn, and that means we're going to be asking some questions about what transpired today. I have Sylvia Baptiste as my quiz master. Is she back from her travels?
Yes, I am, David.
Oh, good morning.
Morning, everyone. I am back from the long 37-hour car ride. The job I hold today is a listening skill that we have to have for speaking, so we make sure we sound at speeches and events sound like we know what we're talking about. So I'm going to quiz everybody's listening skills at the end of the meeting today and see how we do. And my favorite is the Peanuts. I always like Charlie Brown.
Charlie Brown is the perpetual everyman, and that's why the strip works so well. One moment, please. I don't know. Apple ID wanted me to, never mind. That's a whole nother speech. Now someone, speaking of Peanuts, Sylvia, now someone that enjoys playing Lucy to my Charlie Brown, our general evaluator, Jen Zappla.
Why did I know that was going to be me? Well, hello, Dave. I will be your general evaluator today. So I will evaluate the overall tone of the meeting as well as the evaluators themselves. And it seems like we're starting off on a fun topic with comics. I think one of my favorite comics is Far Side. I always liked that one. Sometimes, other times it's just terrible, but that's the thing.
You will be tremendously encouraged that that strip is back now. He's come back out of retirement.
It's a good one.
So you're all set. Thank you so much for that report, Jen. Quote Master, Chief Larry Eggard.
Good morning, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. I spent a lot of time looking for the perfect quote. I dug deep. I don't have time to worry about who doesn't like me. I am too busy loving people who love me. And that comes from the seer of seer, the prognosticator of prognosticators, a person sought out for their wisdom worldwide and for their deep philosophical underpinnings. And that quote comes from Snoopy. Mr. Toastmaster.
We're hitting peanuts real hard today, which is perfectly okay. Oh, how would you like to be in this guy's position? I'm doing the Sunday funnies. We've already been pretty funny in our reflections back on the funnies, but now I have to call on the jester for Larry McKenzie to come up with yet another funny. Here's Larry.
Good morning, Mr. Toastmaster. My name is Larry, and I am your jester today. But before I give you your jest of the day, we do have another guest joining us this morning, and it's Kinga from Poland. And I'd like to welcome her this morning. Welcome back, Kinga. Okay, my favorite cartoon was the Lockhorns, or one of them. And if you can see behind me, Leroy right over here, is being served dinner by his lovely wife. And he asks her, "Dear, are the mittens just so that you won't have any fingerprints for evidence?" But that was not my joke. Okay, here's my joke. In regards to the pandemic and things that are going on, jobs are kind of weird right now. So a guy goes in for a job interview and he sits down with the boss. The boss asks him, "Well, what do you think is your worst quality?" The man says, "Well, I'm probably just too honest." The boss says, "Well, that's not a bad thing. I think being honest is a good quality." The man looks at him and replies, "Well, I really don't care what you think." Ooh. And, you know, my memory has gotten so bad that it has actually caused me to lose my job. And I'm still employed, but I just can't remember where, Mr. Toastmaster.
Whoa. Thank you very much. And kudos to you for the Lockhorns, because the Lockhorns appear on Saturday in the Lockport paper in the Niagara Gazette for those that are following along. Well, you can't have table topics and you can't give speeches until you introduce your timer. Our timer is Muklas Rahman. Good morning, Muklas.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and most honored guests. The job of the timer is to help run the meeting according to our schedule. My job is to time the table topic speakers, which will be 1.5 green, 145 seconds would be yellow, 2 minutes will be red. And every speaker has 30 seconds buffer to end the speech. My next portion of the timing would be for the speakers. Speakers vary, but mostly 5 to 7 minutes. So at 5 minutes, I'll give the green. At 6 minutes, it will be the yellow. 7 minutes would be the red. And the final portions of the timing would be for the evaluators. And they are at 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, and 3 minutes would be these colors. Good luck with all the speakers. I know I ran over time last time, so it's tough, but we'll try our best to make sure everybody enjoys the meeting. Now, my favorite cartoons, I could not pick because all of them are my favorite. So I ended up Flintstones and the Jetsons. And the reason is Flintstone takes us back to the Stone Age, which we came from. Most of us may not recognize or even accept, because we are a strange human creature. And then the Jetsons. The future is coming. Like this meeting is like one of the Jetsons ideas that may have had long time ago, 30 years ago. And the little drones that can carry you around from office to shop to wherever you are going. So the world is actually coming towards Jetsons with your vacuum cleaner, which is a robot. We may not have a Sally who is the maid that serves you like a robot. But overall,
Rosie.
I think it's
Rosie, not
Rosie,
Sally.
Rosie. That's right. Senior moments. I don't remember all the names, but I have fun. Thank you so much, Mr. Toastmaster David Licata.
Muttless, thank you for tying it all together, because in your brief explanation about which funnies you liked, you really drove my point home, and I appreciate that. Now, we have a gentleman in our club who has always guided us through these technical times, and he's going to be doing table topics this morning. So I'd like to introduce our own Wizard of Id, Len Thornton. Lenny.
Thank you, David. It's a pleasure to be here. Today we look at the comics, which have throughout our lifetimes parodied life in general, business, or different aspects of society. I know for me, there was a morning routine as a child growing up to grab the paper, which was a physical paper, and look for that comic section. And Sundays, it was even more special. It was color comics in a full section, not just 2 pages. Just hopping in mom and dad's bed with a newspaper and getting your comic section to put a smile on your face. That was priceless. Let's see who we'll call on today here. David Doerrier, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Do you have any childhood memories of enjoying the comics? And would you please share those with us this morning? David.
Well, thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Sunday comics have a big role or a big part of my life from the past, growing up in my family. My family was like kind of a parody of a real family. Everything that a real family did, our family did completely opposite. However, back to the comics. As a child growing up on Long Island, I had an opportunity to be a newspaper boy. My father was in the newspaper business. He was delivered the Long Island Press, also worked for Newsday for a number of years. But my connection with the comics had to do with delivering that Sunday paper every week. And at that time, as a young child on Long Island, everybody took the newspaper. It was quite a task. The newspaper was so large on Sunday that half of the newspaper had to be delivered to our home on Saturday. And then Sunday morning, you would get the rest of the newspaper. So I remember in the mornings on Sunday putting together that Saturday section into the Sunday section, and your hands just turn black. I remember the colors of all of the comics. And I also, just like David, would put the comics on the outside of the newspaper. Just loved all of that color. Remembering going to the homes, delivering the paper, seeing the joy on the customers' faces to see me that early in the morning. I also enjoyed being home and reading the comics and getting just involved in all of the different stories, the Peanuts, Kathy, and all of the others. So the comics for me has been such a great memory from when I was a child, and delivering the newspaper, getting half of it on a Saturday and delivering the rest on a Sunday. Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, David. Yes, bringing back memories for me as well. I used to do the inserts when I helped my friend deliver his paper out. And yes, I always made sure the color section on Sunday was very prominent as soon as you open the fold of the paper. Now, a lot of the comics were at a very basic level. Just about anybody could understand them. And as a child, It taught you about life. If you didn't understand something, you could ask your parents. You basically got most of it after a while, and it rounded out your view of life. Now, some comics were a little bit more progressive. One in particular was Doonesbury, tackling politics, the politics of the day. Ryan, what are your impressions of Doonesbury, and would that even survive today in this fast-paced political jungle? Ryan Flory.
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. Guests and fellow Toastmasters, I'm going to be brutally honest with you. I have heard of Doonesbury, and I've probably even read several articles from Doonesbury, several comic strips. However, I could not tell you accurately enough if it would survive in today's society. So what I do want to talk to you about is the absolute parody of life that is Dilbert. You see, Dilbert is my favorite comic strip. Having worked in several offices and at a government job for a long time, I can tell you that Dilbert resonates throughout my entire core. No matter what Dilbert does, it's never good enough for his boss. It's also typically frowned upon to make anything more efficient, to make anything a little bit faster, or to do something that's not directly by the book. One of my favorite parts about the comic as well is his tie is typically in some state of disrepair that is unrealistically evident, but also entirely reasonable. My favorite is when the tie points directly back up into the sky as he's walking around, and it's just a reflection of Dilbert's overall mood. So my memories of the comics always come from my dad reading them first and then posting them right under the phone in our house. And Dilbert was always prominent. So, Mr. Table Topics Master, I apologize that Doonesbury was not at the tip of my tongue, but I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Ryan. You stole my thunder there. Dilbert is what brought me as an adult back into the comic world. I love Dilbert. Scott Adams, I've read probably 5 or 6 of his books. Just brilliant parody of business and office life and the characters. I think he rejuvenated the comic industry in a lot of ways, probably about 20 years ago when it started. Let's go to Kinga. In Poland, obviously you have different comics there. Please give us some culture here, a cultural perception of what you experienced with comics growing up. Maybe talk about your favorite one and what kind of humor it was. Kinga.
Yeah, we have lots of stand-ups, comedies, but I'm not fond of stand-up comedies because I'm not fond of vulgarisms, and that's why I don't watch them at all. I love the humorous contest that we have in Toastmasters because there are lack of vulgarisms, lack of some kind of humor about religion, sex, and politician. And because there are such humor that really, I really like English humor. Lots of people don't like it because it's difficult, but I really like. When I was a child, I used to watch some kind of comedies according to Allo Allo, and Allo Allo was very popular at my country, and because it was about the Second World War. And people in my country really like this subject, and yeah, we really like history. And Allo Allo was a comedy, and it was a specific humor of German nationalists. And that's why we really loved this one. And of course, if there will be some humor about maybe yeah, and we have some humorous comedies about the poor people, about the people who don't work, or who don't go to work, who are lazy, or who drink too much, and that's some kind of humor that is very popular in my country now. And of course it was this Allo Allo. I think that Allo Allo is the one of the most popular sitcom, and yeah, and I think that, but I'm not very fond of it now, and of course I would love to watch Allo Allo due to English, and to catch up some English words and some sentences and some phrases, and that's the way, and that's the opportunity to find this beautiful words and phrases, and that's why I watch it.
Thank you, Kinga.
Yeah.
I have to say, growing up, the most iconic one, if you take my entire life, was a single panel printed comic, Family Circus. It's a different method there, that you have to convey a story in a single panel. And they did it, and it was wholesome, and it applies to all ages. I could read those to this day if I got the printed paper, which sadly I don't. But that is my fondest memory. Always at the very top because of its different layout and its size. A wonderful part of my history. At this point, let's go to our timer, Muklas. How did our 3 contestants fare today with their timing requirements?
Good morning, Mr. Table Topic Master, the world of strip comics or comic strips. I loved comic strips because of the parody life. I mean, that was the fun part of it. About the speakers. We had 3 wonderful speakers. David Doerrier on Long Island newspaper delivery, and he again highlighted the life as a young boy and the connection with the comics. He was at 1 minute 55 seconds. Ryan Floor did the best, in my humble opinion, because Dilbert is a famous comic strip because it really parodies life. I mean, there is nothing more real and true than the Dilbert. So he finished at 1 minute and 51 seconds. I'm only talking about the comic they like, not about the speech. The evaluation is different. Kinga from Poland did some of the stand-up comics that she didn't like, also the vulgarism she doesn't like, but she did talk about Allo Allo, and she did go to 3 minutes and 12 seconds. Mr. Table Topic Master.
Muklas, how many qualified? Did everybody qualify?
If you ask me, I'm a very liberal judge. I'll say everybody qualified. Toastmaster can always overrule me.
No, we'll go ahead. We'll let them all qualify today because I'm in a good mood. And plus, when I went and spent that semester overseas in London, I found out that the Sunday funnies were not universal. So our friend Kinga is off the hook.
Yeah.
So we'll extend that grace.
Okay, let's go to Margot now for our word master. How did our contestants fare with the word parody?
Thank you, Len, for asking. I did not hear Kinga use it, although she did sign on late, so she might not have been aware that that was the word of the day. But David and Ryan both used it. Len, thank you for finally sneaking it in. Moklis, Jen, I'd like to hear a little bit more of people parodying themselves or using the word parody. Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you. I'll turn this back over to our Toastmaster of the day, David.
Thank you very much. Now I want you all to place your votes, please. I've submitted my vote, and I'm old and slow, so I'm going to assume that everybody else did. And I just want to comment, and Len, thank you so much. You really hit a lot of notes this morning. But I'm going to do a brief filler here, and I'm going to try to keep it brief. What do Jackie Kenney, Phil Russell, and Dave Licata have in common with the creator of Family Circus? Bing, time's up. We were all taught by the Oblates of St. Francis de Sales. That gentleman was in a high school just like mine with the Oblates. Dilbert is amazing. The gentleman that created Dilbert stayed on the job at his corporate job, which was the inspiration for the strip, naturally. And after a while, he got a little caustic in the strip, and he was invited to leave his corporate position. So now he's probably just like the rest of us. There is the British equivalent to Hogan's Heroes is Allo, Allo, and that's about the French, or more importantly, the Nazi occupation of France at the time. But it had a lot of similarities to Hogan's Heroes because they were the butt of all jokes. And Kinga, it was a parody of what was going on in France that time. So I have to scold you just a little bit for not using that. All right, we're going to roll up to what I like to call the meat and potatoes portion of the meeting. And there's a parody and a cliche, because we've been using that cliche forever. Our first speaker this morning is going to be Alexis, and evaluating her over in Studio B is Mike Licata. Michael, do you have her parameters, her goals? Can you share that with us?
Read that again, because I am not her evaluator. I'm Phil
Yeah,
Russell.
it's me.
Oh my God, I am so sorry. Oh, I see where I went wrong, Jerry. I'm sorry.
Not a problem.
It would be Gerald Stevens. Hey, Gerald, what's your favorite comic strip?
I have two, Wizard of Id, you mentioned, and Beetle Bailey. Those are pretty good ones, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you for this topic today, David. It's new and fresh. I don't think we ever had this one before, so I like that. Definitely a lot of parodies can be seen from the comic strips for sure. Alexis today is the speaker that I am evaluating. She is doing a 5 to 7 minutes speech, Mr. Timer. And it's the second speech in her pathways. Evaluation and feedback. I get to evaluate her twice, so that should be fun. She'll do this once and then she'll do it again in the future. And it could be on any topic, this speech. It could be possibly a parody. It could not be. She can do whatever she would like to do in regards to speaking today. And her title, Mr. Toastmaster, is Less Stressed and More Blessed. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much. Now we have a new member, and this is extraordinary. This new member came to be part of our club totally on Zoom. We're all anxious to meet her in the flesh. But it's Alexis Rivera, and like her evaluator said, the title is Less Stressed and More Blessed. Alexis.
Thank you, Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. For those of you that don't know the story of the two wolves, I'm going to paraphrase this for you. There's an old Cherokee teaching his grandson about life. He tells his grandson, there's a terrible fight going on inside of me between two wolves. One wolf is evil. He's anger, guilt, pity, lies, greed, and ego. The other is good. He is joy and peace, hope, truth, love, and faith. He continued, that same fight is going on inside of you and every other person. The grandson asked his grandfather, which wolf will win? Cherokee continues and replies simply, the one that you feed. So during this COVID-19 pandemic, I decided to choose to feed the good wolf. I found blessings in 3 main areas of my life. I found the blessings of accomplishing my personal goals, blessings in my family life, and blessings in my interpersonal relationships. The most important goal that I've had, especially since the beginning of this pandemic, is my personal physical health. When I learned that COVID-19 was attacking the respiratory system, that was scary for me because I had been a smoker 5 years ago, and I quit. Unfortunately, I picked up and replaced that habit with one that I was naive to, which was vaping. I was naive to the adverse side effects of that. I thought that it was less harmful, and I later learned that it was just as harmful, if not worse, than actually smoking cigarettes. So I had made many attempts to stop before, but learning that if I did happen to acquire COVID-19, I would need all of the physical strength I could muster, and it would definitely affect my respiratory system. So it helped influence me to quit. I've been nicotine-free for 3 months now. And I also decided that I wanted to work on my physical health as far as eating healthy and getting more exercise. So the second part of my blessings came from spending more time with my family. I've heard a lot of people joking that spending more time with their family has not been a blessing for them. But for me, I didn't have a lot of time with everybody having a different schedule and my kids going to school and friends' houses, and there's nowhere to go now. So we spent more time together, and I learned a lot about them. It's been a huge blessing to reconnect with them in a way that I haven't in years since they were young. One of the things that I learned about while reconnecting with my children is TikTok. Now, I don't know what influence TikTok has had on you personally. I always thought it was just a bunch of people doing parodies of songs. For my daughter, it was her discovering different ways to annoy me and to terrorize our pets. But I was watching TikTok with her one time, and I saw a small clip of a woman that like showed me organizational skills in 35 seconds. And I said, whoa, wait a minute, what is that? And she said, no, you're not doing that on my account. You're gonna set up your own account so you can look at that mess. So I learned that TikTok has helped me with healthy meal planning, exercise ideas that are focused for specific target areas like lower back pain, and herbal remedies. And those things it's become a regular habit for us to look up different and interesting ways to improve our health. Like we learned how to make a lasagna completely out of zucchini instead of noodles, and it turned out amazing, by the way. And then finally, the third aspect of my life that has increased in blessings is my interpersonal relationships. See, when the pandemic first started and we were in a lockdown, I thought this is great. This works out perfect for me because I'm an introvert. Well, I got lonely pretty quickly and I learned that I'm not really an introvert. I'm just I have a non-confrontational personality. So I learned who my friends truly are, and the ones that have qualities that are important to me, I've learned to build upon those relationships and strengthen them. And that has been a huge blessing to me, especially in this time where I'm trying to stay happy and keep the peace. When COVID-19 first began to rampage through New York, my initial response was to feed the evil wolf. I watched every news report and I held on to fear and frustration. I had a lot of stress and anxiety because I was uncertain of what was going to happen. And it was really taxing on my mental health and my spiritual health. But because I chose to feed the good wolf instead, I'm less stressed and more blessed. And thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Excellent. And now we can go to Studio B and introduce our next evaluator. It's Mike Licata.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guest this morning. Phil is working out of the Pathways Communication. He's doing the Delivering Social Speeches speech this morning. Mr. Timer, the time is 3 to 4 minutes. So the green light at 3, the yellow light at 3.5, and the red light at 4. And Phil will be giving a toast this morning. And I do believe you have his title, Mr. Toastmaster.
Well, I think he shared it with me yesterday when we were golfing, and that was pretty much of a comic strip, that adventure. So, Phil, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to tag your speech. The title of Phil's speech is A Toast to My Son and His Bride. A Toast to My Son and His Bride, Phil Russell. Can't hear you.
Unmuted now. How am I now?
You're excellent.
All
Phil. Excellent.
right. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. I want you all to grab a glass and fill that glass, for we are going to give a toast to Philip and Kelly. I want to start off with thank you to all the family and friends for coming to this wonderful occasion. You've come a long way, and we're all gathered here for this joyous occasion. I would be remiss if I didn't thank all of you who are serving, have served, and will be serving to keep us safe and free. I want to thank Jeanette and Steve Bartek for their wonderful hospitality, the wonderful family that they have given, and this for this special day for their daughter, Kelly. I want to thank my wife, Chris, for it was not for her, I would not even be here. She set everything up. I also want to thank Father B. Cool for such a wonderful sacrament and also for helping Philip through his years at the University of Rochester. I also have to give special thanks to the United States Navy for bringing Philip and Kelly together. There's one more person, an unnamed bartender at an Irish pub somewhere in Hawaii who helped bring the introduction of these two wonderful children together. Now, raise your glasses for this wonderful couple, Philip and Kelly. Congratulations. Best wishes for a long, loving, and prosperous life. Hear, hear. Mr. Toastmaster.
Phil, thank you very much. Let's give Phil that magic zoom in round of applause. Thank you, Phil. Evaluator number 3 is an extraordinary young man who works very hard, has overcome some things in his life, and he's become a very capable evaluator. Up next, please welcome Marty Johnson.
Thank you, David, for that kind introduction. I have the great privilege this morning to be evaluating not only my mother, but the mom of AM Lockport, Jackie Kenny. Jackie's working in the pathways and dynamic leadership. And this morning she is working on a project, Research and Presenting. And her purpose is to review basic research methods and present a well-organized speech on the topic of her choice. The time, Mr. Timer, is 5 to 7 minutes.
And I have the title.
Thank you, sir.
We have a young lady that will forever be, in my mind, a junior in high school, because that's when I first met her. She was taking attendance with her accomplice, and these two stunning young ladies would come to my homeroom every day to check out the attendance. And naturally, once I got used to this routine, I made sure I was always in attendance. But it's my dear friend, Jackie Kenny, and the title of her speech is Seeking Serenity. Seeking Serenity, my dear friend, Jackie Kenny.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what it took to get the family on vacation. As we keep saying, because of COVID, we had planned a vacation with my grown children and put in for dates because one member of the family has to choose his vacation days in January. So we picked the first week of August. I found a great vacation house on the beach in Massachusetts, and we were set to go. And then COVID. Went back and forth, wasn't quite sure whether we wanted to take that risk or not. I finally canceled the vacation house because it was a lot of money, and the policy was you had to cancel 2 months in advance to get your money back. So I canceled. Well, then as time went on, we decided maybe we would take the risk. We'd have a vacation, all of us together. We'd stay in that house. We'd wear masks when we went out. We'd social distance. So the hunt started again. How do you find a place to take a vacation? Well, you can look at the Boston Globe, read their ads. That's my daughter's job. She lives outside of Boston in Cambridge. We've chosen the dates, so we know when we want to go. We decided on a budget. We know how much we're going to spend. We looked at some sites like VRBO and Airbnb and a number of other internet sites, and you all know where they are, HomeAway, you can find them. As we were perusing all of these sites, we found a house that we had stayed in once before. It has a private beach. It's right on the bay in Situate. So we knew what the house was like. We knew we would like it. Excuse me. And we decided to go for it. Now the next part is getting there. In our case, it was driving with a car loaded with all kinds of things, including our new favorite game, Crokinole. You might want to look that up. Since we had a house with a nice kitchen and plenty of room for everyone, we decided to take off and enjoy ourselves. We picked a place that had 5 bedrooms and 3.5 bathrooms, so everyone would be comfortable. We picked a place that would accommodate 2 couples, 2 singles, and a teenager. We found out there are a lot of things you can do when you are enjoying a beach vacation. But for me, the most important thing is definitely looking at the ocean and enjoying every single minute that I can spend out there. We always tend to do a lot of cooking, and since we had a nice kitchen, that wasn't hard to do. We also definitely spent a lot of time reading, enjoying books, and that's, you know, I need someone to enable my screen sharing so I can show you a little bit about what the vacation entailed. I think all of you will be interested. Is my screen share up?
You're good to
I don't know
go.
if we're seeing anything, but
Try it again.
I had a
Share
gorgeous deck to sit on every day. I enjoyed the waves, the water, the sound of the ocean. To me was amazing. And we did a lot of fun things in addition to enjoying the sound of the ocean. We cooked. We found out you can bake cookies on the grill after our walks on the beach and enjoying sunsets. The scenery was beautiful and more than what anyone would need. We've got people getting cookies ready to go on the grill. We had a lobster fest, of course, because you always have to have a lobster fest. It was definitely not a parody of a vacation. It was the real deal. It was restful. If you do a little bit of research, you can find a place that's just right for you, just the kind of thing that your family needs to be together, to spend time together, to get away from it all. And you will reap the fruits of your research, and then you'll come home to your best friend. Thank you, your Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Jackie. Without further ado, we're going to check in with our timer. Muckless, how did the speakers do this morning?
Well, Mr. Toastmaster of the day, the 3 speakers did wonderful job. Alex, for 5 to 7 minutes on less stressed and more blessed, being nicotine-free for 3 months, and having fun with TikTok was at 7 minutes and 8 seconds. Phil Russell, a toast to my son Mike and his bride Kelly, was wonderful, short, sweet. The best part was the Hawaiian introduction by the Irish bartender. I would say he was at 3 minutes because he had some mute, unmute issues that I could not exactly start the beginning. So he was at 3 minutes, so he should qualify. Jackie, the mom of the society here, seeking serenity on vacation, family vacation. Time is not important, but precious moments are priceless. So I think she did exactly wonderful at 5 minutes, 55 seconds. Mr. Toastmaster of the day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Muckless. And now I believe all the speakers qualify. So without further ado, take a moment and cast your vote for our speaker of the day. Today, because I've had just tremendous cooperation and everybody did their jobs, we are well within the parameters of time, which gives me an opportunity to do a little bit of a filler here. The Yellow Kid was indeed the first comic strip. It appeared at the turn of not this century, but the last century. And it became so popular that people referred to the newspaper as the Yellow Newspaper. Well, that newspaper in question became a vocal supporter of the people that wanted to go to war. They wanted to have the Spanish-American War. And that's where the term yellow journalism comes from. It has its roots in the funnies. Going back, way back, another story about getting acclimated to these United States. Bringing Up Father was about an Irishman named Jiggs, who became fabulously wealthy because he was in the land of opportunity, and he just wanted to be a regular guy and hang out at Dinny Moore's and have a beer with Phil Russell. But his wife demanded that he act more in tune with his station. Now, I am the funniest geek of all time. I found this incredible book, and it's called Cartoon County. And it refers to the fact that before we had the internet, before we had fax machines, the people that did the funnies and the cartoons for the Sunday funnies, the daily newspapers, the editorial cartoons, and the New Yorker had to hand deliver those funnies, which meant they all lived in one county in Connecticut. And they all became quite friendly. And to my amazement, some of these strips are very crude, the way they are drawn. But all these gentlemen and ladies involved in comic strips were great artists. So if one of their brother or sister comic strip authors was indisposed by situations or bad health, they would cover for each other and draw the strips. I'm sure that the main creators supplied the strip and the artists filled it in for them. But I thought that was incredible that Mort Drucker, who does Hager the Horrible and had a hand in the creation of Beetle Bailey, was clever enough that he could draw Prince Valiant. And that's just nuts. So that's something that I took away from that. But evaluations are super important. And I can see on my screen that Dr. Stevens is being very patient. So Gerald Stevens, evaluator number 1, please. We're waiting for your evaluation, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster and fellow Toastmasters. Alexis told us a very personal story today, and thank you for that. You started with a good opening in regards to a parody, actually, of a story that you told about the two wolves and connected it with your own life, side by side. Would you be going towards the evil? Would you be going towards the good? Little intrigue there in the beginning. So that's pretty cool to draw us in a little bit. Talked about your personal goals. I feel like a lot of us in this club, at least, are very goal driven, and maybe in Toastmasters in general. So we could identify with that. Important. Talked about your fears of COVID. I feel everybody on this call probably has some fears of COVID. Also, connecting with the audience, an important thing to do. Kudos, I have to say, for quitting smoking for one, and then quitting vaping for two. Hard to do. Sadly, two of my kids do vape. No smoking. As much as we tell them, they have to follow your example. So I will share your story with them. Maybe they can turn a negative into a positive. More eye contact with the screen, I would suggest for you. You were reading a little bit, and that's okay. That's pretty normal for newer Toastmasters. A little more vocal variety. Maybe lean into the screen a little bit to emphasize a point or two. They're all useful things. That way it doesn't seem as monotone and gets people awake in the morning. I encourage you to try to memorize the beginning of the speech and memorize the end. And throughout the speech, there's just points. That way you don't have to read, and gradually we'll get away from that. And that always comes across a lot better. Kudos to you for reconnecting with your kids, turning new technology into a positive as well, getting some organizational ideas and recipes that sound like a yummy dish that you made, and staying healthy and happy during this time. Hard to do. And reconnecting with friends. I feel a lot of us have reached out to people they haven't seen or heard from in a while, and that can help us get by. Thank you again for sharing your personal story on COVID, and we look forward to hearing this again, and I look forward to evaluating again as well. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stevens. And now we switch back to Studio B here at the Licata Studios. Without further ado, evaluator number 2, a fair man. He's learned to become even more fair because he's indeed a baseball umpire now. It's Mike Licata with evaluation number 2.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guests this morning, and especially Phil. Phil, first I want to say congratulations. I know it's an honor to be a part of your son's wedding, and I'm glad you got to share the experience with him. So first I want to say congratulations. I'm glad that with everything that's going on and the way the world works now, that they were able to actually get the wedding in. Overall, I thought you did a great job with the speech. I know that with Pathways, it's a little bit harder to find a speech title, a speech that fits into Pathways. I emailed you last night with this evaluation sheet. I just want to make sure that going forward, everyone gets credit when they give speeches, because I think it's important that everyone gets credit because it works toward our club goals in education. That being said, some of the things that I would feel that you need to work on with the speech is, you did a great job. The things I would work on, though, is the ending felt rushed. I think that you need to slow down, maybe put a recap as part of the speech. I know that toast can be a little bit different depending on the experience and the audience. I think that maybe if you added humor as well, it definitely would have improved the speech. I know as the father of the groom, it's a little bit different than best men speeches or maid of honor speeches, depending on the experience. But I think overall, the humor could have been injected. I think overall you did a great job. I know that in this environment, this environment isn't easy because a toast speech is something that's done in presence. So I'm really not going to discredit not looking into the camera and all that, because this is an in-person speech. So thank you again for giving in this environment. I think you did a great presence. Thank you for standing up. It definitely improved the speech. And overall, I think you did a great job. And again, I want to congratulate you on your son's marriage. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Michael. Yay! Evaluating my dear friend Jackie Kenny is my dear friend Marty Johnson. Marty Johnson, you're evaluator number 3, and I invite you to take it away, Marty.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. Ladies and gentlemen, this morning I had the distinct pleasure of evaluating Jackie Kenny. Jackie showed us this morning how proper research and preparation can make a general speech a fabulous speech. Just a highlight of the speech, Jackie, when you presented this morning, you used vivid, you used imagery, you painted a picture, and I could see before you actually showed and got into the screen share, I could actually see the location and exactly what you were talking about. Jackie, you have a way of using words that are very descriptive, and that's very helpful when you're explaining and leading into, a big decision about finding a beach house for a vacation. There were a couple things I just wanted to point out. I feel that to improve the speech, there were a couple times when you could have used hand gestures. You did use hand gestures. And I know because sometimes we're seated, sometimes our hands, we might be using them, but our hands don't come up and appear that we're using them because we're seated. So I would definitely recommend that you incorporate a couple more hand gestures. And I made a note to myself, one time you could use hand gesture when you were thinking you could possibly scratch your head, or boy, how are we going to decide on this beach house, and then go on from there. But you could just use your hand gesture for that. And the second one I just made a note of, you could use a hand gesture and possibly vocal variety when you actually found the ideal one, and it was one I think that you stayed at or nearby. You could say, yes, we found it. We finally found it. We finally found a perfect vacation beach home. And just a minor point, Jackie, you're excellent with the screen share. You're 150% better than me. There was one little glitch. It was just a pause. It was just something minor. But I would suggest that you keep on working on that, because I think you did an excellent job with the screen share. The pictures were very vivid and described exactly, showed exactly what you were explaining to us. The summary, just to summarize, ladies and gentlemen, Jackie showed us this morning what proper research and organization of a speech can do for a speech. And her presentation, the result was a great presentation. Jackie, best of luck on your next presentation and your pathway. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Marty. Evaluators are timed, and that means another visit back with Muckless. And Muckless, I'm not surprised that your favorite strip is Dilbert. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, that's a little serious one, but the fun ones are the Jetsons, because I'm still looking forward to have those strips and have a robot serve me my first drink after work. We had 3 wonderful evaluators. Gerald for Alexis Rivera, excellent feedback evaluation with at least 3 kudos at 2 minutes, 41 seconds. Mike Licata on Phil Russell, congratulated him for the toast, and he was at 2 minutes and 27 seconds. Marty Johnson for Jackie Kenny, 3 minutes and 17 seconds. But what I want to add, this club bubbles of friendship, fellowship, and a very warm, loving atmosphere. I love this club. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Muckless, thank you very much. And now for $64 and the right to play again next week, what indeed are the Flintstones based on? But vote first and I'll be back with that answer. Who are the Flintstones based on?
The Honeymooners.
Very good. I knew Margot would come through. Good job, Margot.
I was typing it as she said it.
Oh, all right. And there's the Family Circus. Great job. And that poor fella, the author of the Family Circus, he has lost his wife. But when she was alive, she would go to the supermarket and people would ask her if that character was based on her because he nailed her. He did a great job in representing her when he sat down at his drafting board and drew the strip. Now, we have to check in with Lucy Van Patten, our general evaluator for the day. And I've always believed, for the sake of the fact that I am indeed a charter member, these meetings are better with more of you and less than me. So I'm going to ask Jen in these Zoom times if she would like to take over the entire meeting and call for reports. And if that's not convenient for her, I will indeed call for the reports. It's Jen Zapla.
Thank you, David. I absolutely would love to call for reports. I didn't write everyone's names down, so I apologize. I'll probably go out of order. But I think I'll start with reports. So let me start with reports and then I can finish with the general evaluation for today. And I am going to start with our gesture master, Charlie.
We have a Zoom.
I
break in the
finally
air.
got it, so you can hear me.
Yes.
I'm going to start with table topics. David used his hands, and Ryan was hands and head. He moved his head around, and I didn't get anything as far as for Kinga. Our first speaker, Alexis, it was facial expressions. She was good on that. And then on our second speaker, Phil, of course, he used his hands and raising the glass. And Jackie was great. She did use her hands some, and then she used those pictures. And I grew up in Quincy, and I know Scituate, so it was a real interesting speech too for me. And the Gerald, he used face and hand, or face and hands, and Mike, face, and then our speaker for for Marty, he used hands and gave some good examples of how Jackie could have increased her speeches. That's my report.
Thank you, Charlie. Now I'm going to pass it over to Beth and Kate, whoever would like to go first, our master and grammarian.
Thank you, Jen. For master, we had a very good day for master, I felt. A few things to make note. Ryan, you had a very good pregnant pause at one point. It worked very well in your speech. Kinga,
as I also, you have to work on your uhs, quite a few uhs and ohs, but you're getting there. Alexis, you did have a number of ums, and so, but you are improving immensely. I certainly love the choose the good wolf kind of theme. I didn't hear anything in terms of ahs or so's, that kind of thing, from Phil or Jackie. I thought they did a very good job. Gerald, you had a few uhs kind of snuck in there. Mike, you had a couple of uhs between phrases. Marty, at one point towards the end, you had a long pause. I think you were trying to look through your notes to make sure that you had wrapped up everything, but that was good. And Charlie, you had a couple of uhs, but in general, I think we did a very good job today. Thank you.
And to follow up on that is the grammarian's report. Many clubs, this is a combined role anyway, so this was interesting. I am going to take a page out of Margot's grammarian book and list the negatives and then the positives. Gonna, lotta, kinda, gonna, watching, gonna, lotta, pretty much of a, wanna, introduction, should be introduction, wanna, really, couple of, gonna, kinda. Stop dropping G's. Diction, please. Mike Licata, your diction was excellent today, I noticed. On the positives, underpinnings, resonates, evident, rejuvenated, wholesome, highlighted, ego, aspect, non-confrontational, rampage, taxing, joyous, remiss, hospitality, sacrament, prosperous, accomplice, serenity, accommodate, enable, entailed, lobster fest, restful, reap, acclimated, draw us in, goal-driven, identify, discredit, distinct, vivid imagery, descriptive, glitch, kudos, and bubbles up. Fantastic use of vocabulary. And as a final note connecting to the comics and parodies, when I was a high school history teacher in my last career, I had a wall that the students would cover with political cartoons that they would just add to throughout the year. And I loved watching them understand and question the world around them more. So I encourage you to see the light side of comics, but also the deep side. And that's probably why Calvin and Hobbes always resonated with me. So thank you very much, Madam General Evaluator. Back to you.
Thank you, Kate. I will now turn it over to our word master, Margot.
Boy, do I miss being at Tom's Diner. For those who don't know, when I'm word master at Tom's Diner, as you walk in, I put a clothespin on you. And until you use the word of the day, you can't take your clothespin off. So as a result, people did not use parody as much as I did. So I'm going to ask you, what's the word of the day? Say it one more time.
Parody.
One more time.
Parody.
The word is now yours. Please use parody all day today. Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, Margot. I will now turn it over to our quiz master, Sylvia.
Well, Margot, you stole my thunder. I was going to have people say that word. It was the question, my first question. Today's theme, I liked, Dave. What was the theme on?
Sunday funnies.
Yeah, comic strips. Very political, some of them. John was referenced a couple times as
Lucy.
Yes.
To Dave's Charlie Brown.
Dave Licata started something on you, John. Now we're going to have that. Yellow journalism term came from
the Spanish-American War. And
what comic? Wasn't it a comic first?
What did Dave say?
Oh, it was the
I know, but I won't give it up.
The Yellow Kid.
Yeah, that's And Ryan's favorite, it seemed like everybody jumped in on that one.
Dilbert.
Dilbert.
Also, we had how many guests today?
Three.
Okay, that's it today. That's my listening skills wasn't too well.
Wasn't too well. Oh, Sylvia.
All right. Well, thank you, Sylvia. Did I miss any reports today? So it's up to me now.
I think you did. I think you covered all the bases. Yeah.
I covered the bases. So now I'm going to give my report of the meeting. I think we had quite a fun and interesting meeting today. People seemed very engaged with the topic. It was very lighthearted. We started the meeting on time, and Dave, you did an excellent job passing everything back and forth, even though you're working from a phone and not even a computer, which I know makes this job a little bit more difficult. Our evaluators today, we had 3 evaluators, and I think for the most part, we had some good evaluations. Mike, I would just caution you to make sure you put a little bit more meat in that sandwich. It was pretty light there. So I want to make sure the focus of our jobs is on giving our speakers room for improvement and making sure that they have something robust to do that with is important. Overall, I think that the tone of the meeting was very well received and interesting. One other note of caution, I think for the most part we do this well, and Mokles had mentioned this at one point, that our club can be very welcoming and engaging. And so I think when we have roles, whether it's as an evaluator or a quiz master or whatever our roles are, we need to make sure that that is the focus of the reports that we're giving. And adding in commentary is fun and good, but the focus should always be on what our role is for that meeting. So I just wanted to make that note. I think for the most part we do that well, but just keep that in mind if you are giving a report. And
I'd like to thank Jen so much for her general evaluation this morning. I want to confess to you that doing the prep for this, I had an epiphany. And what comic strip character do I identify? And because of the Peter Pan element in my life, I'm almost a little embarrassed here, almost. But I'm pretty much Chip and High and Lois. I'm still a teenager. I'm still trying to get out of shoveling the driveway and cutting the lawn. So that forced me to have an epiphany. But I want to check in with Tom Moran. Tom, what's your favorite comic strip?
My favorite comic strip growing up was Blondie and Dagwood. I always enjoyed them. I find this subject kind of interesting. There was a downside to comics as well. There was back in the 50s, there was a book called The Seduction of the Innocent that talked about comics and comic books, and there was actually a concern that it was encouraging juvenile delinquency. And it may sound funny to you, but actually there were Senate hearings on this, and people came and testified about the effect of comic books on comic books and comics on children. It was pretty interesting time back then. So yes, but I like Dagwood and Blondie, and I also like Dick Tracy. I like the idea.
Oh yeah.
I thought the artwork was pretty clever. I really appreciated that, and I like the way that Dick Tracy had holes in them all the time. That was pretty cool. So yeah, thank you, David, for the opportunity to speak this morning.
Little Abner, parody Dick Tracy.
Yep,
and
yep.
Little Abner's favorite comic strip character was a parody of Dick Tracy, and he was Fosdick. What was his last name? I apologize, I don't know.
I know what you mean. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, because he always appeared with bullet holes in him. That was a gag. And Little Abner was fascinating parody and satire of the present state. And I miss Al Cap. So, but moving on, we got to get back to the subject matter. I'd like to check in with Larry Mackenzie, Larry, do you have our winners this morning?
Actually, what we're going to do is turn it over to our president this morning, which would be Eric Snyder, who would love to announce our winners.
Thank you so much, Larry and Dave. Before we get to our winners this morning, I would like to ask our guests on how they enjoyed our meeting this morning, and I will start with David.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, fellow Toastmasters, and other guests. This has been a pleasure to be a part of your meeting. I can see that you're living up to the quote that you have on your website. It's worth getting up for. Very professional. Everybody knew their tasks, did a very good job, great evaluations. I think the one comment that I have is around the Pledge of Allegiance, because you have people coming and joining from other countries, maybe a short introduction of what the pledge is and why the Pledge of Allegiance is used and why it is a part of the club. That's the only comment I have.
We appreciate
David,
that.
Before we lose David, I have a friend who started out in Niagara Falls, New York, but made his living in Connecticut. And to escape the confiscatory taxes of Connecticut, he now lives in Dallas, Georgia. Is he anywhere near you?
Yes, I'd say about 20, 25 miles.
Okay, great.
And David, are you a Toastmaster with what club?
I'm a Toastmaster with Swanee Power Lunch Toastmasters. We meet Mondays at noon.
Please feel free to put your information in the chat and I will share it with the group.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much, David, for joining us. Carlos, our friend from Mexico City. How you enjoy the meeting today, Carlos?
Yes, Eric. Well, today's meeting wasn't a parody of what an exciting meeting should be. And I am very pleased to be here. I will take this opportunity to talk a bit about Mafalda. I was telling you about that on chat. And for example, there's this strip where the mother, Mafalda is a toddler, no, not a toddler, an 8 or 9 old year girl. And there's the mother washing the dishes, and Mafalda comes and says to her, "Mommy, what would you have been if you ever lived?" So there's the irony on that, because as an adult, sometimes we forget the goals that we have when we are children. I reconnected to that because of Toastmaster, and I'm very grateful to the institution and to the club and to your club to allow me to be here with you today. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carlos. We hope you can join us again next week. And finally, our guest all the way out from Poland, Kinga. How'd you enjoy the meeting today?
Like always, I have been enjoyed this meeting, and it's great to be here, and it's great opportunity to see you and meet you, and I love this club and really like the atmosphere.
Oh, thank you so much again for joining us all the way out from Poland. Thank you. Now on to our winners this morning. Our best table topic speaker this morning is our guest all the way from Georgia, David. Congratulations, David. Our best evaluator this morning is our own Dr. Jerry. Dr. Stevens, congratulations. And last but certainly not least, our best speaker of the day. Please give it up for our club mom, Jackie Kenny. Before we adjourn the meeting today, are there any final announcements from the floor?
I just wanted to take a proposition. Dave, you want to go kick a football later?
That young lady is clever.
Yes. By the way, speaking of kicking a football, if you're not doing anything this evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, AM Lockport has a social hour, And I did put the link in the chat.
Thank you so much,
Larry,
Larry.
Larry, could I ask, are women invited to the social hour as well?
Yeah, last week was a all men's portion of.
It depends on what type. It depends on if they're sharing pictures or not.
Oh, you better adjourn, Eric.
Yeah, let's adjourn the meeting, please, before.
Okay, you're making me blush.
All right, stick around for post toasties. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, everybody, for making my job easy. Everybody fulfilled their obligations and made my job easy.
We're
Nice
here
job,
for you,
David.
Dave. Good job.
It was
Good
fun.
job.
It was more fun than I hoped.
From
Because
studio.
last week when I gave out the theme, I got a lot of eye rolling from the younger members. But the Sunday funnies are in the fabric of our lives.